Welcome to the Member for Day podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Frank DeBlasi, the founder of Baller Dream Foundation. Frank, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor and pleasure, Eric, to be here.
Frank, I did some research, obviously. We've been working with your foundation for a while now. You have an incredible story. I want to hear it. I want the listeners to hear it. Your background, how the Baller Dream Foundation came to be in existence.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Eric. So I was just about 30 years old, living in New York City, what I thought would be the prime of my life, and I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. Not the most exciting cancer to have when you're a young man trying to live a great life in New York City. But I was incredibly supported by my parents. My dad was a doctor, my mom was a nurse. And every day my mom would be waiting outside the treatment room with graham crackers and ginger ale while I was in treatment with young adults and children that were there by themselves for the most part. And I just remember saying, hey, if I can get through this, I want to create a nonprofit that provides major gifts and experiences and financial management to young adults and children battling cancers. I always remember that 8-year-old gal that I sat next to during radiation that was there by herself while my mom was waiting for me outside cheerleading my exit. But I always hated the term patient.
Yeah.
And for me, it was always such a medical term, such a scientific term, a cold term. And I said, if I create this nonprofit, instead of calling those we serve patients, we're going to call them ballers. Modern day term for someone doing well, feeling well, and in control. And I saw your background and resume, Member for a Day. It's a baller life, that Member for a Day.
I appreciate that, Frank. And yeah, it's interesting that, you came up with the term ballers. And I agree, patience, it's not necessarily the most positive term. I mean, you could have chosen lots of different words. How did you settle on ballers to describe them?
Well, I thought a few things I had in mind. Division I former basketball player, so I always had an athletic background. So term baller, I think its origination had an athletic reference or connotation to it. But then the term baller, I think in social pop culture became a way of life. Like, hey, he or she's balling. They're flying first class. They're wearing a pair of classic Jordans. They're saying at the Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton. I wanted these kiddos, whether they're watching YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, any sort of social media outlet, they're seeing a baller lifestyle. So I want these kiddos to feel special. So I thought the term baller was a reference to, celebrate a way of life, that they're going to be a baller during treatment and after treatment. And just recently, Eric, Webster's Dictionary just added the term baller to the dictionary to describe a way of life. And I'm thinking that maybe we had something to do with it. I also remember back in the early 2000s on Showtime, there was a show called Ballers.
Absolutely.
With Rock, and he was a superstar agent. And that also, I think, played well into it. To be honest with you, I thought the term baller that we came up with was before the show. So I'm not looking for any royalties from Showtime.
Frank, I'm curious because, I'm really curious to hear your answer on this. Obviously there are a lot of cancer foundations, and coming out of this, you must have been at least aware of that. There's a lot of large ones that do a lot of good in the world. What made you think that you could start another one and do something that sort of maybe was amiss in the current landscape of foundations?
That's a great question. There is no shortage out there, Eric, of wonderful nonprofits.
Yeah.
All sorts of amazing missions, particularly as it relates to pediatric cancer. For me, though, in anything in my life, I always want to make sure we're different and we stand out from the rest. And Baller Dream certainly does that. I would say 3 things that come to mind that makes us unique. 1, we are specific to cancer. There are nonprofits that work with all life-threatening diseases. We are specific to cancer. The biggest administrators are, we go up to age 29 with our beneficiaries. Most nonprofits stop at the age of 18. For me, I was 29 when I was diagnosed. And for us, we really focus on a gap, that 18 to 29. Now, I love gifting the young ones. I love gifting the birth to 18. Yeah. But that 18 to 29 gap, Eric, is so overlooked. Everyone from a marketing perspective, you always want that shiny 5-year-old that looks like a Disney princess and wants to go on a Disney cruise. But for us, there's those plenty of 22-year-old single moms who have leukemia, and there's no outlet, there's no resources available to them. For me, I love focusing on that segment. But I would think the biggest difference between us and most nonprofits out there, it's not just a gift that we provide. It's not just an experience. It's a relationship. So we always tell our families from the start when we meet them, from diagnosis to treatment to remission, we're with you every step of the way. Because half these kiddos, they relapse and they'll need additional support. But we've created this ballerhood, if you will, of family and support and relationships, and we're connecting ballers in each state. Hey, Eric, how did you beat this cancer? Hey, Frank, how did you tolerate radiation? And we're creating what I feel is a family relationship that goes on. So it's not just a gift. Hey, take care, Eric. Good luck and beat cancer. You'll never hear from us again. For us, we say, hey, welcome to the ballerhood. Hope you like us because we're going to be with you as long as you want.
So is there, I would assume, obviously virtually, but also physically, do you try to get all the ballers together at different events and so they can share their experiences with each other?
Yeah, for sure. Our ballers, they always share with us. They love meeting other ballers.
Yeah, I'm sure.
To connect, share best practices, peaks and valleys. How'd you get through this? But we want to do it in a fun environment. So in every market of ours, every quarter, our team coordinates a baller outing.
Cool. We
could take a group to Top Golf. We can take a group to go-kart racing, speedboat racing, laser tag, ball games. We do an outing not just for the ballers, but also for their siblings and for their families. We want to make sure that they're all feeling the love, because it's not just that kiddo or young adult that's going through cancer. It's the whole family that's affected.
Yeah. Frank, I'm sure you have a lifetime of memories that you can pull from. And so this may be a very difficult question for you, but are there any stories, memories, anecdotes that stand out to you as just some of the most rewarding for you since you started this organization?
That's a great question. Not to be cliche, but it's almost daily. I think myself and the hundreds of ballers we've helped coast to coast. We want to provide memorable experiences and gifts, of course, and also support them with financial assistance and really curate a gift for them, what's going to matter most. But there are a number that stand out. I will share a couple of years ago, Guy Fieri. We had a baller from New York who wanted to be a chef. She wanted to, perhaps meathead. She watched Food Network. And so we were able to coordinate an experience with Guy Fieri where we flew out to his studio in the Bay, north of San Francisco, Santa Rosa, and we were on the set of Guy's Grocery Games for at least 3 to 4 hours, and we watched 2 shows being taped, and he made us lunch, and he was just absolutely awesome. And the smile that's on our faces, and the baller specifically and her family, was so memorable. Michael Bublé has been wonderful to Baller Dream. He elected to meet with a baller after a show because he felt he had more time to spend with that baller rather than meeting with him before the show. I mean, who does that? I mean, that was absolute baller. Taking a baller we took an Arizona baller to a live taping of Dancing with the Stars, which for me, I have no dance ability whatsoever. It's incredibly exciting to see the behind the scenes of a live show such as Dancing with the Stars. And we were able to get on the floor and meet some dancers and the judges, and that was incredible. Those are just 3 of many that stand out, Eric.
Yeah. Great examples. Frank, can you kind of give us an idea of just the size of the foundation? I guess any metrics you want to share, but how many lives you've touched, how many experiences you've had, just kind of give us some high-level figures.
Yeah, for sure. So Baller Dream officially became a nonprofit in 2018. And just a short amount of time, we now operate in 6 states. We have partnerships with a number of children's hospitals throughout the country, and we're growing. We were often solicited by other potential partner hospitals throughout the country asking if Baller Dream can come to their market. So we're trying to grow responsibly and also keep an eye on fiscal growth, sustainability, that is. But, Eric, we can generate reports, if you will. We've done better housekeeping on the number of lives that we have saved and touched and also have joined in this experience with. But now I'm thinking we're well over 1,000 ballers coast to coast that we have impacted in some shape or form.
Nice.
We'll need to do a better job of that data as we're getting bigger and bigger, but it's got to be well over 1,000 now.
Incredible. Frank, I'm always impressed, and probably not surprising. I speak with a lot of people who've had a lot of setbacks and have turned those into incredible things like you have. I'm curious to know sort of what advice you would give to people that may be going through something similar to what you went through a few years back, and how they could turn a negative into a positive and do something, maybe something like you did.
It's a great question. And as I think through that, I get, somewhat choked up because when I was diagnosed and going through that at age 29, I was worried about my friends teasing me about having just one testicle. I lose a part of my manhood, right? And I was worried about women body shaming me. Here I am, 30 years old, just about to be 30, dating, whatnot, and worried about it. And rather than boo-hoo and get sad about that, I decided, you know what, Frank, roll the punches, stay positive, think that things could be worse. That was the way for me to stay positive.
Yeah.
And also just remember that I'm not alone. So great organizations like Baller Dream are there to support and provide resources and build relationships with our healthcare heroes. There's plenty of support at the hospitals with social workers, volunteers, nurses, pediatric oncologists, etc. So I think that is important to remember. Hey, do the best you can and stay in positive. You have family, you have friends, hopefully. You also have wonderful resources. But for me, the positive mental attitude was so important. And there were some dark days for sure, but if you just will your way through and know that there is a path forward, a path to improve and get better, I promise you there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Well said.